Hello everybody, it's Dio from Firm But Fair Gaming, bringing you another video. Hello everybody, it's Dio from Firm But Fair Gaming. Today we are bringing you another Fury Warrior build guide. Today we are covering the Onslaught build. So of course Onslaught got a buff in 10.05. So let's just take a look here for Warrior, get down to Fury. So Onslaught damage is increased by 40% and now generates 30 rage. It used to be only 25. Tenderize, the talent below Onslaught, causes enraged to last 2 seconds longer. Used to be 1, so now we can have a 6-second enrage. And then there's some other stuff about Ravager and whatnot. But the only other important thing for this build is that we get some normal damage buffs here. So Rage and Blow does 10% more, Execute 15% more, Rampage 10% more, and Bloodthirst does 10% more. I'm skipping the Annihilator and Bloodbath because that doesn't really apply to us. And also, they did, where was it? Oh, here it is. Anger Management now decreases the cooldown of Ravager, which means that we're going to be able to cast that a hell of a lot more. And then also we have duration of Avatar and Recklessness caused by Berserker's Torment is now 8 instead of 4, so that doubles that effectiveness. So if we're looking at the talent tree, it's down there, but don't give any spoilers. So those are the changes that happen in 10.05. So now, before we take a look at the actual talents and build and all that fun stuff, just going to do a quick little shout out and don't forget to hit up our channel and hit the subscribe buttons. We have tons of different videos for a few different games. We got Diablo, of course, World of Warcraft. We have some Star Wars and a few games like that. So check it out. We got tons of videos. Hit the subscribe button. And of course, don't forget to like and share. Also, you can find me on Twitch. That will be in the description. Come hang out with me there. I stream pretty much daily. Would love to chat, run keys, do whatever. Anyways, that's enough of the promotional stuff. Back to what you actually probably care about, like I care about, the talents, rotation, and all that fun stuff. So let's take a look. All right, the talent tree. So just going to throw up a 17 Shadowrun that I did with this build for more entertainment than just listening to the sound of my voice. Okay, so on the warrior side, we pretty standard. So we're going into Berserker stance, defensive stance, picking up impending victory for some victory rush, which will give us healing and sustain, and also help the healer out in some of those intense fights. And then we're going to have War Machine, so our auto attacks generate more rage, and if we kill somebody, then we get rage and move speed. Commanding Shout, sorry, Rallying Cry. Don't know why I said Commanding Shout. And so this is basically just a raid defensive. So help out, pop that for situational where the group needs a little bit of help to sustain some damage. I'm thinking on Tyrannical Weeks, the first boss in the Adds Revolt, when he does the stomp, probably the second or third stomp, you may need to use that in order to help some people live because it's massive amounts of damage that comes out at that point. Fast footwork is some move speed. Spell Reflect, incredibly useful. Tons of spells we can reflect, as well as also just the damage mitigation that we get. So that is key. Then we got Leeching Strikes, bit of a life regen there. Then we have Frothing Berserker. So Rampage has a 20% to immediately refund 20% of the rage used. Heroic Leap, some mobility, and also just fun to use. Then we have Furious Blows to increase our attack speed. Having trouble talking today, jeez. And then we got Pain and Gain, so anytime we take damage, we heal for 4.5% of our max health. This can only occur once every 10 seconds. I go into Stormbolt, a nice little stun, also an additional interrupt if our pummel is down. Some people like to use Intimidating Shout. I can think of a few instances where you want to do a group AoE interrupt where that would be useful. We also go into Overwhelming Rage, so increases our max rage by 130, which is really useful in this build in particular because Onslaught helps generate a ton of rage. So that is just pretty handy there, so we can get a max of 130. And then we go into Sidearms, so our auto attacks have a 20% chance to throw weapons at targets in front of us, some nice extra AoE. Then Reinforced Plates for more armor, which helps as well because down here we're going to get strength equal to 10% of our armor. Bounding Stride, so after we leap, we get movement speed. I go into Barbaric Training, so our Whirlwind, because we don't use Slam in this build, deals increased damage and has a 10% increased critical strike. Then we have honed reflexes, so reducing our cooldown of Raging Blow and Pummel by a second. Double time for 2 charges. And then I have Seismic Reverberation, so if it hits 3 or more enemies, it hits them 1 additional time for 30% damage. And then, as mentioned, I go into Armor to the Teeth, Avatar, and then a little bit different here. Usually people would be going into Titan's Torment for the Odin's Fury combination, but we're going into Berserker's Torment, so activating Avatar or Recklessness casts the other at reduced effectiveness. So that is a little bit different. It pops all the time because we also have Anger Management on the other tree, so this is up all the time. It was great. So we also go Wild Strike, so I'm only one of 2. So with 1 point into here, we got Haste is increased by 1%, and our auto attack increase our auto attack speed by 10% for 10 seconds, and then rank 2 it's 2% and 20% for 10 seconds. So I only have 1 in here because I like having the Seismic Reverberation. I feel like I get a little bit more damage out of that, so that's why I did that. But you don't have to. If you want to drop that point, you can put 2 points into Wild Strikes instead. Then we have Dual Wield Specialization to increase our damage by 5%. And then we got Cruel Strike, so critical strike chance increased by 2%, and crit strike damage of execute increased by 10. Then of course we go into Spear Bastion, just throw it on the ground. Enemies can't get out of the spear for the duration, and then Elysian Might increases it by 2 seconds, and then while we're standing in the spear, we get increased 25% increased crit. So that is the points on the Warrior side. Now let's take a look at the Fury side. On the Fury side, looks very similar to what we've been rocking in just 10.0, so the only difference is going to be down near the bottom, but I'll get to that as I go through. Just want to cover everything else because I don't want to skip anything. So we got Bloodthirst, Raging Blow, then we have Improved Enraged, so our increases our haste and move speed, Enraged Regeneration, so a nice little defensive here and life regen. Improved Execute, so it no longer costs Rage and now generates 20. Then we go into War Paint, so we take 10% reduced damage while Enrage is active. Sudden Death, where we have a chance to reset our Execute. And then our 4-piece, of course, is this on steroids. And then we have Improved Raging Blow, so we have 2 charges and has a 20% chance to reduce or instantly reset its own cooldown. Go into Rampage, so we have 4 Brutal Strikes, and then of course it enrages us. Into Cruelty, while enraged, Raging Blow deals 15% increased damage, and so does Annihilator, but we don't use Annihilator, so ignore that. Then we got Frenzy. Rampage increases our haste by 2% for 12 seconds, stacking 4 times, and it's reset if you Rampage a different primary target. So more of a single target buff there. So then we have Hack and Slash. Each Rampage strike has a 25% chance to refund a charge of Raging Blow. And then Slaughtering Strikes. Raging Blow causes every strike of your next Rampage to deal 20% more damage, stacking up to 5 times. So this impacts our rotation. So instead of just spamming Rampage whenever we get the Rage for it, we're going to throw in some Raging Blows to increase that damage output. Then we have Ashen Juggernaut. So Execute increases the critical strike chance of Execute by 10% for 15 seconds, and that can stack. Handy during execute phases, and if we get the procs to reset it, so we can get some nice crit bonus there. Improve Whirlwind, so our next 4 single target attacks strike up to 4 additional targets for 50%. Wrath and Fury, Raging Blow does more damage, and while enraged, there's a 30% chance to instantly reset its own cooldown. Then we have Recklessness, which just is crazy. It doubles our rage regeneration and gives us 20% crit for 12 seconds. Then we have Massacre, which now Execute is usable on targets below 35%, and its cooldown is reduced by 1.5. Meat Cleaver, so Whirlwind does more damage, and our next 4 attacks, single target attacks it's now 4 instead of 2. Sorry, tripping over myself there. Raging Armaments, Raging Blow gains an extra charge. Now we've got 3 charges. Then we have Swift Strikes, increase haste. Raging Blow generates more rage. Critical Thinking, crit strike chance increased by 2%, and Raging Blow and Annihilator strikes, damaging critical strikes deal 10% more damage. And now for the most important part that you've been waiting for, the change here that we have at the bottom. So we're going in Anger Management, so every 20 rage you spend reduces remaining cooldown of Recklessness and Ravager by 1 second. I just couldn't believe how often Ravager and Wreck were up. It was just wonderful. And then Ravager does a good amount of AoE damage on trash packs, so I was a little bit worried about our AoE output, but when Ravager's up that often, it was great. And then, of course, we go into Unbridled Ferocity. So Rampage and Onslaught have a 20% chance to grant Wreck for 4 seconds. Then we're actually going into Onslaught, so brutally attack an enemy for X damage and become enraged for 6 seconds. So that is just awesome. So you can just get an instant enrage there. And then we have Tenderize, so Onslaught enrages you, and if you have Slaughtering Strikes, grants you 3 stacks of Slaughtering Strikes. And now Enrage lasts 2 seconds longer, which is why we're getting 6 seconds of Enrage instead of 4. So then we can get more spam in, like more Raging Blows or another Onslaught, and don't necessarily need to Rampage unless we're Rage capped at 130. Then, of course, we want to dump that so we get more Rage. And then we have Ravager here, so we throw a Whirlwind Weapon at a location that chases nearby enemies, inflicting physical damage to everybody around, and then it's reduced beyond 8 targets. And then we are going with Hurricane, so while it's active, every 0.8 seconds you gain 5% move speed and 5% strength, stacking up to 6 times, and it lasts for 6 seconds. So the combination of the Hurricane and Wreck with anger management, it was up so many times in the dungeon. I was just really impressed with it. I completely wasn't thinking about the impact it would have on Ravager when I first set this build up, and I was very, very happy with the end result. Okay, for our rotation, so on open, we're going to use our Charge and Ravager macro, then we're going to Whirlwind. So we have to Whirlwind because we do not have Odin's Fury, so in the other build, Odin's Fury would proc off Avatar and give us the 4 stacks of Whirlwind. We don't have that, so we need the Whirlwind. Then drop Recklessness, Avatar, and Spear. Then we go into 3 Raging Blows, Rampage, and then 3 Raging Blows, and then if we're at max rage, then we do Rampage. If not, then Onslaught. Then for sustain rotation, we're doing Whirlwind if the buff is absent. Then it goes Raging Blow, Onslaught, Execute, Rampage. And if we're not in rage, we want to Onslaught. If that's on CD, then Bloodthirst to try to proc and rage. And then Whirlwind as filler if we have nothing else available. So it looks like this. So here we go. So I got my puzzle box. I'm going to pre-do that. And go in with the Ravager macro, drop everything. Of course, I'm already rage capped, so then we're just going into Raging Blows, into Rampages. When Onslaught is there, we're of course going to use Onslaught. And then it's just sustained. So I'm getting actually a number of execute procs, which was throwing me off a little bit. So at the moment we are at 130k. And then we're just going to do this, and this is all it is. So for this, because we have Anger's Management, like as you can see, I already have Recklessness and Ravager coming back off. So it is pretty crazy with how fast that keeps coming. I'm just going to do this until the Spirit comes back. And our rage generation is just through the roof. I already know that I messed up right there. I should have Rampaged instead of Raging Blow. But anyways, this is what it looks like. So we're sitting around 100k still, which is pretty good sustain. Against only 3 targets. I'm not clipping this guy. Last time I did a video, I was clipping the PvP. So this is truly just against 3. Another bit to this rotation. There we have our Avatar and Wreck again, but I'm not going to pop that just because I got Spirit coming back up. So we kind of ended that minute and a half against just 3 targets at 94k, but against higher targets, obviously it'll be much more. But we had Wreck and Ravager come up 3 times in that minute and a half, and it would have actually synced up with our Spirit Bastion again, and the actual casting Avatar, the actual buff, instead of just proccing it off our Recklessness. So super quick proccing those, and then of course Ravager, like if that pull was dead, it would have been back up for a new pull, just making our AoE really, really good. Okay, for our single target rotation, we are going to charge in and Ravager at the same time. Then we're going to pop Rack Avatar and Spear, Stand and Spear. Then we're going to go into Raging Blows and Onslaught. And then when we hit Rage Cap, Rampage, and then Raging Blows, and then probably a Rampage again. And then we're going to throw in Onslaught whenever it becomes available. So for a sustained rotation, the priority is going to be Raging Blow, Onslaught, Execute, Rampage, and then if we're not enraged, Onslaught if it's available, or if it's not, then Bloodthirst, and then Whirlwind as fillers. So what it looks like in action, just set it up. So I want to get rid of that thing. Puzzle box, charge macro, wreck sphere. There's my spear. And then of course we're going to get execute procs. And then we're dropping rampages whenever we are rage cap, which actually happens quite a bit here. And that's just one thing we got to keep aware of, is just how much rage we're actually generating. And this single target is very nice. Like, I felt for me personally while doing some keys, like that I would just get left behind on single target. It could really pull my weight in the AoE department. Then we have Ravager, throw the Ravager, there we go. And then this just helps. Like some bosses, I just felt like sometimes I was getting left behind, especially if my CDs were down. Here, because we get Recklessness and Ravager back so quick, and the extra single target damage output that we get from Onslaught is just nice. Like here we are, I don't even know how far we are into this. Oh, we've already a minute in. Still, we were at 60k until I looked down there trying to see where my timers were. But on some, and this is without hero, on some fights with hero now, like I'm sustaining well over 70k on some boss fights, which is very nice. Down to 53, but anyway, so kind of fell off there because I kept peeking down at my cooldowns and then lobbing away. So anyways, so we finished there at 55, 56. Just to cover a little bit about my gears, so I'm now up to 409, and then I do sim with this build. Simming using WoW Sim doesn't sim as well as the other build, just because there's limitations to the build based on 5 targets and all that stuff. But single target wise, this one was about 53 or 54k, whereas the other build's single target was 49. Of course, on an AoE comparison, it was 84 versus about 73, I think, or 74. Can't 100% remember, but it's hard for this build. It doesn't sim as well in the AoE department, but from running it in a dungeon, like it feels very, very smooth. The additional Ravager procs and Recklessness I feel makes up for the lack of Odin's Fury. And then from the 17 I ran, I did parse it at 97% running this, so it does have some strength potential. I'm seeing other high-level guys running this build as well, so it is performing. I'm going to test it out more, but I wanted to share this with you guys because it did outperform my original expectations of it. I made a couple tweaks and it just turned into that much better. Anyhow, that's enough rambling for me about that. So just going into the stat priority, it's kind of the same as the other builds. So we have a preference on mastery. So for me in particular, I have, what do I have now? Almost 4,000 mastery. And then I'm up to 3,600 haste. And then I have 2,000 crit. And then I want as low verse as possible. And we have 1,800 verse. Kind of can't get away from that because the number of our set pieces have it. But that's kind of my priority. So my haste is actually higher than what I thought it was, so I might start putting the extra points into crit where I can, maybe an enchant or a gem if possible. But anyways, that's kind of the priority that I am doing for the build. So that brings us to the end of the video. If you have any questions or comments about the build, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer those. And of course, I always appreciate any likes, shares, and subscribes, so please click those buttons. And of course, once more, you can come find me on Twitch, streaming almost daily. So until then, hope you guys are enjoying WoW Dragonflight and that you have success in 10.05.